Hello everyone, my name is Crystal Davis and today I will be sharing with you my second grade social studies lesson. The standard that I am teaching is evaluate the contributions of various African Americans, Hispanics, Native Americans, veterans, and women. The ELA standard I am teaching is participate in collaborative conversations with diverse partners about grade 2 topics and texts with peers and adults in small and large groups. The NCSS theme is civics, and the big idea that I want my students to come away with is that although we are all diverse and we look different on the outside, we are the same on the inside. The objectives I want the students to come away with are, if I gave them the name Martin Luther King, the student will be able to evaluate the contributions of Dr. Martin Luther King and either explain, retell, describe, or illustrate the impact he made on society, giving at least one correct contribution. I'm teaching this lesson because it will be taught in accordance with Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and I want the students to know why we observe a day for Martin Luther King and how he has impacted all of our lives. I will know that my students have mastered the objectives by having a discussion at the end of the lesson about why the activity can relate to Martin Luther King. We will go around the circle together and discuss all together. If the student chooses to pass, which they are allowed to, they can write why they believe we did this activity and what Martin Luther King stood for. The content knowledge that is necessary for a teacher to teach this material is knowing Dr. Martin Luther King's biography. The teacher needs to be very familiar about who, what, when, and where, and how of Dr. Martin Luther King. The teacher also needs to be prepared for all possible uncomfortable questions regarding the civil rights movement and know how to answer them in an age-appropriate manner. The misconceptions that students may have about this content is that they may think that Martin Luther King was the only leader in the civil rights movement. The teaching method that I've included in my lesson is partner share. I believe this is important because there are several students in my class who are too shy to speak out in front of the entire class and are more comfortable just sharing with their partner. So I will begin the lesson about taking a formative assessment and asking the students, has anyone heard of Martin Luther King? And for those who raise their hand, I will ask them what they know about Dr. Martin Luther King. And something that they might say back is that they knew he was a leader, or, he was a great guy. And I will introduce Martin Luther King by reading Martin's Big Words, The Life of Dr. Martin Luther King by Doreen Rappaport. So this is what the book cover looks like. And it starts out by showing great detailed illustrations of Martin as a child with his mother. And the first page reads, everywhere in Martin's hometown he saw signs, white only. His mother said these signs were in all southern cities and towns in the United States. Every time Martin read the words, he felt bad, until he remembered what his mother told him. You are as good as anybody. So I really like this book because, number one, it gives direct quotes of Martin Luther King and his family. The second page says, in church, Martin sang hymns. He read from the Bible. He listened to his father preach. These words made him feel good. When I grow up, I'm going to get big words too. So the book portrays Martin as a small child growing into this amazing leader who led the civil rights movement. It uses direct quotes from Martin's life. And here's another example. It says, he said together when others said separate. He said peace when others said war. Sooner or later, all the people of the world will have to discover a way to live together. And the illustrations are very engaging. It's sure to really capture all of your students' attention. It's very informative, and trying to see, here is, it actually has a page where a part of the I Have a Dream speech is included, and it says, the marches continued. More and more Americans listened to Martin's words. He shared his dreams and filled them with hope. I have a dream that one day in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. After 10 years of protest, the lawmakers in Washington voted to end segregation. The white-only signs in the South came down. So this book is one of my favorite books. It shows the students that Martin was a little boy just like them, and that he can grow into this amazing leader, and that anybody can have the same impact if they wanted to start a movement. And the book kind of just wraps up about who he was and just a review on what he stood for. The last page ends with, his big words are alive for us today. So after we read, we have a little discussion about what we just read. And the first question I would ask is, who can tell me what MLK fought for? The answer I'm looking for is equal rights. Now, another question that I would ask would be something like, who did MLK want to be when he was growing up? And the answer would be, he wanted to be like his father and say big words like his father. And I'll continue asking questions. And the last question I'll wrap up with is, what was his famous speech called? And the students will say, I Have a Dream. So I think that because the book included that aspect and included a quote from I Have a Dream, I thought it would be very nice to actually show them a clip of the I Have a Dream speech. So I would be showing them this clip. It's a 5-minute long clip.
I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
So I'll show them a short clip of that. And then after, they're going to turn and talk with their partner about what you thought was important and what stood out to you in the speech. So I would also ask, since the book showcased about Martin's young life, if they would like to see actually where Martin lived growing up. So what we're going to do is we're going to log on to nps.gov, and it actually shows you a virtual tour of his house. Here we're going to look at his bedroom.
ML and AD shared a room on the second floor.
So there's his bedroom.
Lots of activity in ML and AD's room.
And it has a little speaker
Great disarray. Clothing, shoes, games, and toys filled
that shows his room and talks about how MLK loved to read, and there's toys on his floor and lots of books. So, and that's that. So after, we're going to be doing an egg sharing activity. The students will have colored eggs at each table and a worksheet, and they will work with their table group to discuss the differences and write down the differences they notice on the worksheet. Now, because it is second grade, I'm going to come around and crack the eggs at each table, and the students are going to record how the eggs look on the inside. After this activity, they're going to come to the carpet, and we are going to discuss our findings and what they have learned from the activity. So here, this lesson connects to the interests and cultural backgrounds of the students because my class is very diverse, and I think this is my favorite part. This lesson connects to reflect the local community because one day these students will grow up and make significant contributions to the community, and it is important for them to learn about leaders so they can be inspired to bring about change. So that really wraps up the main components of my lesson, and I just wanted to talk about why social studies is so important to learn in the classroom. So I believe that social studies is very important because students need to learn about their surroundings, students need to learn about their history, and they need to learn about everything that engulfs social studies because they're going to grow up, and like this lesson said, these students are going to be making contributions to our society, and it's really important that we make time for social studies and we incorporate it every single day in our classroom. I can tell you that, my family-in-law is from Russia, and they know history like off the top of their head. And I asked, how do you know all these dates of world history? And you know what they told me? They told me that they know it because they studied it ever since first grade. They studied world history, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. Now, because they're aware of past world history, they can have actual real connections to the history that's happening currently, that's going to be history, and they can relate back to previous history and to make those connections and to understand the politics and what's happening in the world today. They can be better educated to make wiser decisions when they vote. I really enjoyed, to wrap it up, I really enjoyed this class. I learned so much. One of the most meaningful things that I've learned is that social studies can teach acceptance of all students, which we really need because students are being bullied on a daily basis, and we need to be fostering an environment that teaches kids to accept all races, all cultures, and all people. And thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed my lesson.